If you're a Cowboys fan or even just an NFL fan with a pulse, buckle up because what we're about to dive into might be the wildest wave of off-season speculation you've seen in years, and honestly, it's the type of rumor that makes the league stop in its tracks and go, "Wait, what?" Picture the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, right at the center of a massive, swirling storm of speculation, whispers, insider curiosities, and fan-fueled frenzy surrounding one of the most dominant defensive forces of this generation, the absolute physical anomaly known as Myles Garrett. Yes, that Myles Garrett. The man built like a Marvel villain, the monster off the edge who strikes fear into offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, and frankly entire offensive lines who have nightmares about trying to block him for 60 minutes. Now imagine that guy wearing a star on his helmet. Imagine that force of nature suiting up in Dallas blue and silver, lining up next to Micah Parsons, the other generational freak athlete, and the two forming arguably the most terrifying pass rush duo the NFL has ever seen. This wild scenario has grown so loud, so explosive, so unbelievably captivating that Cowboy Nation and even neutral fans can't stop talking about it, dissecting it, debating it, and dreaming about what it would look like if the Cowboys pulled off a trade so huge it would instantly become one of the biggest moves in franchise history. And that's saying something for a franchise like Dallas that has lived through legendary acquisitions, monstrous draft steals, dramatic trade failures, and more hype cycles than any other team in sports. But this one is different. This one is nuclear. And it all starts with the Cowboys hitting that point of frustration, that point of impatience, that point where almost good enough is no longer acceptable, and the constant playoff heartbreaks have finally built up to the moment where something big needs to happen, something bold, something aggressive, something that shakes the foundation of the organization. And while the Cowboys have talent, no Cowboys fan needs to be reminded that the defense has repeatedly fallen flat when it matters most, especially when facing elite offensive lines or playoff-caliber quarterbacks. So when Myles Garrett's name even slightly, even vaguely, even hypothetically enters the conversation, fans lose their minds, and rightfully so, because Garrett isn't just some Pro Bowler. He's a franchise-changing weapon. He's a defensive-altering, culture-transforming, game-wrecking presence. He is the type of player that instantly elevates a defense from dangerous to historic. And that's exactly why this rumor, this enormous, jaw-dropping, reality-bending rumor, has grown from tiny sparks online to a full-on wildfire spreading through fan circles, content creators, analysts, former players, and everyone in between who can't help but ask themselves, hold on, wait, could the Cowboys actually pull this off? The speculation exploded because Dallas has been suspiciously quiet this offseason, like weirdly, eerily, hauntingly quiet, especially for a team that desperately needs a statement move. Meanwhile, the Browns are facing one of those tricky crossroads that NFL franchises reach every few years, expensive contracts piling up, star players wanting more stability, questions about long-term roster direction, and the uncertainty about whether their current core can truly get them over the hump. And whenever a team hits that kind of moment when the front office has tough financial decisions looming, rumors about star players being available for the right price always start swirling, whether the team intends to shop those players or not. That's the gasoline. Cowboys Nation provided the match. And boom, suddenly we've got a full-blown theoretical trade scenario involving Dallas front office supposedly calling, checking in, testing the waters, or at least feeling out what a mega trade for a player like Myles Garrett would even look like. And let's be honest, if Jerry Jones even sniffed an opportunity like this, the man would sprint through the door like he's trying to beat someone to the last slice of cake. And that's when the imagined trade packages started exploding across social media: 2 first-round picks, 3 first-rounders, a second, maybe Sam Williams tossed in, maybe Trayvon Diggs, maybe a pick swap, maybe a blockbuster haul that looks like something straight out of Madden franchise mode after you turn trade difficulty down to 0. Fans debate nonstop about what's worth it, what's too much, and what the Cowboys should be willing to sacrifice to pair Garrett with Micah Parsons for the next half-decade. Some fans say, give up anything, you don't get a player like this for cheap, while others push back and say, no star players go in the deal, give them picks and depth pieces only. And then there's always that small but vocal group who say, don't even tempt me with this, I'm tired of heartbreak, because Cowboys fans know the drill. So many big rumors, so many big promises, so many big what-ifs that turn into absolutely nothing. But even with skepticism in the air, this rumor refuses to die. And honestly, the fit just makes too much sense. Think about the chaos it creates for opposing offenses: Myles Garrett on one side, Micah Parsons on the other, and Quinn-inspired hybrid fronts that allow for absolutely limitless combinations. Quarterbacks would have an average of 1.3 seconds to throw. Offensive coordinators would be throwing clipboards. Running backs would be terrified because suddenly they're expected to help block two of the most athletic freaks the league has ever seen. And let's not pretend Garrett's presence doesn't elevate everyone else, because it absolutely would. Micah Parsons becomes even more deadly because he's no longer the sole focus of double teams. The interior defensive line suddenly finds itself winning more matchups because protection slides outside. The secondary benefits massively because quarterbacks don't have time to let deep routes develop. It is a literal domino effect across every level of the defense, and it results in something Dallas hasn't had in decades: a defense that offensive coordinators plan around all week long. And as if that wasn't wild enough, imagine the culture impact. Practices become more intense, the pass rush drills become legendary, and both Micah and Myles push each other to dominate every single game. Free agents see this, and suddenly Dallas becomes the premier destination for veteran defenders chasing a ring. And speaking of rings, this move, hypothetical or not, instantly catapults Dallas into the Super Bowl conversation. Not the hopeful contender category. Not the maybe if things break right category. No. The real, legitimate, terrifying contender category where teams say, if Dallas stays healthy, we're in trouble. That is the level Myles Garrett brings. That is the magnitude of this rumor. That is why people won't stop talking about it. And then you add the spice: Garrett's own recent comments about wanting championship consistency, wanting to be surrounded by elite teammates, wanting to be part of something that can go all the way. He never called out Cleveland. He never demanded a trade. But star players rarely speak bluntly. Everything is coded. Everything is subtle. Everything is layered. And Cowboys fans heard those comments and immediately said, "Hey, that sounds like a man who wouldn't mind playing next to Micah Parsons." And that's when the dream began spiraling into something bigger than a rumor. Something bigger than a suggestion. It became an off-season phenomenon. Talk shows threw gasoline on it. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to trade packages. Fans argued in comment sections until their keyboards wore out. And through it all, the one lingering question, the one that hangs in the air like a cinematic pause, is simple: would the Cowboys actually do it? And honestly, they might. Jerry Jones is unpredictable, aggressive, emotional, and driven by legacy. A move like this, the biggest defensive trade in franchise history, would cement him as the man who brought another superstar to Dallas during the late years of his ownership run. And the Cowboys? They're desperate enough. Hungry enough. Tired enough of playoff failures to say, screw it, let's go all in. Would the Browns accept any offer? Probably not. A player like Garrett doesn't grow on trees. But strange things happen in the NFL. Contracts pile up. Philosophies shift. Windows close. New ones open. And every once in a while, a star player who seemed untouchable suddenly becomes available for the right price. And that sliver of possibility, the 5%, the 10%, the tiny fraction of a chance that this could happen, is enough to fuel an entire offseason of excitement. And that's why this story won't die. It's why fans keep refreshing social media. It's why Cowboys Nation is buzzing louder than ever. Because even if the odds are slim, even if it's unlikely, even if it might just be a dream, it's the type of dream that changes everything. It's the type of dream that turns a franchise into a champion. And Cowboys fans? They've been waiting a long time for a dream like that to finally come true.